Hey everybody. Hey, welcome. Welcome to tonight's Spotlight with Dr. Venice McCoy-Johnson. So we're going to be talking about women in ministry. If this is your first time ever watching any of my videos, I want to welcome you. My name is Kacie Long, and I'm doing something a little bit different today. I'm usually on in the mornings, but tonight I'm doing something called Inspired Overflow Spotlight, and I'm having a conversation with Dr. Venice McCoy-Johnson, and we're going to be talking about just what it means to be a woman in ministry. So just stay tight. One of the things that my husband and I, we were watching before I got on here was we were watching Tish Haynes-Keys, who is a hometown St. Louis girl, and she was actually featured on The Voice. And she was selected by a judge, and it was just really, really exciting to see her operate in her gift. And my husband, he said something to me that was so profound. He said, you know what? He said, Tish was ready for the door to be open for her. And my husband was exactly right, because Tish, not only was her voice flawless, but she was gracious to the judges. She had personality. She looked great. And it was just a reminder of how important it is for us to be ready when God opens the door. That Tish was ready tonight. She was ready for Hollywood. She was prepared. She was ready for when God opened up the door. So I'm just expecting great things that's going to happen in her life. And it was such a reminder that one of the things that God has placed on my heart is to host a workshop for women in ministry taking place this spring on April the 7th. It's called Spring Training. It's for women in ministry. And the whole idea is to get prepared and to get equipped for when God opens up the door. So I'm waiting for Dr. McCoy to come on, and I'm going to bring her in so we can just have a conversation. This is my first time ever bringing somebody in this way. So Dr. McCoy, if you're on, just put a comment so I can see it. And that way I know for sure to bring you on. But, you know, one of the things that God began to just speak to me is about how important it is to make sure that we're prepared for the open doors, to make sure that we are prepared. And that's the whole purpose of this workshop, and really the purpose of having this conversation tonight. Dr. McCoy, she currently lives in New Orleans, Louisiana, but I met her when she was living in Chicago, Illinois, and she wrote a book, and the book is called 21 Wisdom Pearls for a Guide for Women in Ministry. And so without further ado, I am going to invite Dr. McCoy to come on conversation. And so if you are a woman in ministry, or if you love a woman that's in ministry, I want you to share this conversation with them and invite them to come apart and to join us with this conversation. Dr. McCoy, she's going to be sharing some of her wisdom. I'm going to be asking her questions. I got called to ministry in my 30s, so I was kind of maybe a late bloomer for some people, but I got called to ministry in 2013. And both my husband and I, we are first generation preachers. So we didn't grow up with parents that were preachers. You know, we're kind of paving the way for our family. And so there were just some things that I just didn't know, just some ministerial graces that I just didn't know, just some protocols that come with ministry, just some unspoken rules that I didn't know. So at this Spring Training Women in Ministry workshop that's going to be on April the 7th right here in St. Louis, we are going to be talking about a lot of those unspoken ministerial protocols. We're going to be talking about honorariums and contracts, that when somebody invites you to speak, and they ask you, what's your honorarium? What do you say? If somebody, you know, invites you to speak and, hey, Dr. McCoy, there you are.
Yes, I am here. Hello.
Look, we made it work. We made it work.
Yes, we
They
did.
don't know about they don't know about the struggle that we have. We tried to try one thing and try and do this, but welcome, Dr. McCoy, to the conversation tonight.
Thank you. Glad to be on.
So, yes, good. So I want you to just tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to Multitask. Yeah, I was trying to click and invite and share people. I guess I should have did that before you got on. But I am probably quite the contrast to you. I have been in ministry for many years. I was born into it. Dad was pastor in the city of Chicago for 42 years, and about 10 years ago went home to be with the Lord. So I was born in this is what I know, this is all I know is church and ministry. And I personally have been in ministry for last month was 29 years for me, so more than
Wow.
half of my life I have spent in ministry. I pastored in the city of Chicago for about 15 years, and of course I've just um, traveled, oh my goodness, across the this nation with conferences and evangelism. So I'm excited about it. And newlywed, I'm a newlywed, just in
Yes.
December. Moved to the
Yes.
South and making adjustments to living in the South, but loving it, loving that I don't have to deal with snow and boots and all that wonderful stuff
Hmm.
anymore.
Yes. Good. Well, congratulations on being a newlywed. And
Thank you.
our paths connected. I saw your book on Facebook, and this was a couple of years ago. I
Yes.
ordered your book, invited you to come on as a guest on the Inspired Overflow radio show, and you talked about your book, 21 Wisdom Pearls, A Guide for Women in Ministry, which is
Hmm.
available on Amazon.com. And then you were in St. Louis for a revival or conference. And I don't know if you
Yes.
remember, but you spoke to me prophetically and you said, Kacie, God has put in your heart a desire to see women in ministry operate in excellence. I don't know if you remember that,
Yes.
but you
Oh, yes.
spoke.
I
Do you
forgot.
remember that?
Yes, I do now. Yes.
You
Yes.
spoke that
Oh
word
my
into my
goodness.
life.
Wow. Yes.
And it was like earlier in that day, God began to put in my heart to put on a conference to just help
Hmm.
women in ministry. And so
Wow.
it just so happens that you're one of the speakers that
Yeah.
will be here in St. Louis on April the 7th. And you're going to be teaching us just kind of like a ministry do's and don'ts. You're going to be teaching us what goes in a
Absolutely.
contract. You're going to be teaching us, how to handle ministry and money. You're going to be teaching us a lot of the stuff that we as women, we don't learn about. We're taught how to preach. We're taught
Hmm.
how to pray,
Absolutely.
prophesy, be
Hmm.
holy, but like that business side of ministry, we don't learn about. Why do you think like a lot of these ministerial graces are not being shared really with the next generation?
I think that a good evening to those who are joining. I see a lot of my Facebook friends joining. I just clicked and invited a lot of ladies that probably need this live tonight. I'm looking forward to the spring training. I think that one of the reasons that it's missing is because the generation before us, and it's nothing. Um, it takes nothing from them, but many of them, in church, when I came up, if you were faithful, if you were committed, you were placed in an area of ministry, you were placed in position because you love the Lord. But because they did not have the tools that are available to us now, they were not able to pass them on to us. A lot, and in the book, I talk about making a lot of elementary blunders and fumbles and mistakes that I made. And in the process of that, the book came about because the Lord spoke to me and said, you have to put something in writing. I had a lot of women as I traveled across the country would say, will you mentor me, mentor me? And it was just impossible to mentor that many women personally. But the Lord spoke to me and said, if you put it in a book, you can place something in their hand and it will be a form of mentoring. Um, so through the blunders and fumbles that I've made, I've placed it in the hands. So now, in the hands of so many women. So now, generations to come will have something in their hand, and there is a precedent set that now, when you learn better, you do better, and you pass the information on
Yes.
to the next generation.
Absolutely. So if you're just now joining us, we are joined and having a conversation with Dr. V, who is an apostolic leader. She's an author. She's a midwife. She's a spiritual mentor. And she's the author of the book, 21 Wisdom Pearls, A Guide for Women in Ministry. And she's also going to be one of our featured speakers at the 2018 Spring Training Women in Ministry Workshop that is
Yeah.
going to be in St. Louis on April the 7th. Dr. V, one of the things that I always laugh and I think about that's in your book is when you talk about going into a pastor's office. He invited you in there. and you didn't have your armor bearers with you, and he begins to like change his shirt. And I
Yeah.
think, you don't think about that, but you talked about how uncomfortable you were, and the lesson was to never go in a pastor's office alone.
Never go alone. Yeah, that's one of the pearls. Never go in alone. That was very interesting because again, that former generation, it was just, you're just comfortable, your family, and I mean, it's just some things that you just don't do. And I mean, and I had like two or three ladies traveling with me that day, but it just no one had ever taught me. Never enter an
Mm-hmm.
office alone, and it just never occurred to me that you're female, he's a male. You don't know what's going on inside of the office. Well, yes, I assume, but that when the individual who took me to the office, the member of the church, that, okay, I was so accustomed to, okay, we're just gonna sit and chat for a minute before we go into the service, especially since the pastor had not met me. We're just gonna chat for a moment before we go into the service. Well, that wasn't the case and I don't know if the individual that took me there realized that or not, because they just took me to the door and walked away. And once I
Mm-hmm.
realized, I said, okay, that was a lesson learned as well. Always take your
Yes.
armor bearer, and the purpose of that, having that armor bearer with you, is a place of accountability. From that day forward, I always had an armor bearer with me, whether I knew the ministry or the pastor or not, because it's a place of accountability. That there's always someone to be that witness, to say this happened or that did not happen. Because many times women, and I'll just share this, I'm sure I'll share it in the spring training next month, but it's not always as it seems, and it's not always as you may think it is. There are a lot of things that goes on behind closed doors, and I'll just leave it there for now. But there's a lot of things that
Yeah.
goes on behind closed doors that you just need accountability at all times.
Absolutely. And so Dr. V is absolutely right. There are a lot of things that go on behind closed doors. And especially if you're a new woman in ministry, God's starting to open up doors for you. You
Yeah,
want to make sure that you're doing things the right way. And that's really the
absolutely.
entire purpose of this spring training, Women in Ministry workshop. We're going to be talking about the unspoken things, the unspoken protocols and ministerial graces.
Yeah.
Dr. V, I had a male pastor who walked me into being licensed. His experiences, I'm sure, were much different than mine as a male to
Hmm.
me being a woman. And I really believe, like, with this workshop that will take place on April the 7th, it'll be a safe place where you and Pastor Pam Dillon and Evangelist Rachel Hankerson, all of you women, I want to say combined, you guys probably have over 70 years of experience in
Wow.
ministry.
Wow.
Talk
Okay.
about how important it is to be able to share things and to pour out in a safe space.
Oh my goodness, that's very important. That's because a lot of times when you gather, you have different stages of maturity, different or levels of maturity, and so it's very important, because many times we've been so hurt. Many have been hurt and wounded in the church or by leadership in the church, and sometimes leaders are unaware, that they're doing damage. But other times, it's just like, well, just take it, just suck it up, just grow up and be mature and receive what I'm giving to you. But it's important to be in a safe place, because there's a level of transparency that's needed, not just from the one who's pouring out, but from those who are receiving. Because if you're afraid to be transparent, then you really cannot be helped. You have to
Yeah.
open your spirit, you have to open your heart to receive, and especially when you're in an atmosphere where there's apostolic or prophetic ministry flowing, that God will show things to the individual, to that leader that's ministering, to speak into your life. So you have to be able to be mature and to be in a place of transparency to receive what's taking place. And then again, those who are attending, to not go back and say, well, when Dr. B spoke this into Kacie's life, and I mean, and to put it on social media. So there is many times when I'm in an intimate atmosphere like that, it's one of the things that I really stress to women, to be very careful about what you post, in the aftermath, because you don't want it. You want to make sure that what is taking place is actually ministering and it's healing, fostering healing, instead of doing damage to the individual that received ministry.
Yeah. One of the things I think that will be really important is that it will be such a safe place where women will be able to let their guards down. And so we're not going to be taking pictures. We're not going to be posting things on social media, but this will be a time to get poured into. And you know what, Dr. V, I'm so excited that there are women that are traveling from outside of the state of Missouri to attend this workshop. They are telling me that they do not want to miss this. And I know that it's God ordained because of the topics. People, they want to know, what do you say when someone asks you, what is your honorarium? What do you say when someone says, what are your ministerial needs? When God begins to put on your heart about putting together a conference or revival or a concert, how do you do that in the spirit of excellence? I don't want to give away all the tips that you're going to talk about, but I want you to share one thing about one of the things you shared with me is that, sometimes people will invite you to come to speak and there's nobody there to pick you up from the airport. That those are kind of small things that people may not realize. Can you just tell us a little bit about some of those one common mistake that people might make when booking or inviting someone to come and speak at their church?
I think one common mistake is assuming that, the mistake on the part of the ministry is just assuming that the individual, if they're well traveled, that they will take care of travel needs. But that's not always and I think it's because, again, they have not been given the tools, or they lack the tools, the ability to know what's needed. I had someone to ask me, well, what is, your honorarium? And my reply was, I do not have a specified honorarium. I have a, something that, an offering that I'm accustomed to. And their reply was, well, I can't promise you anything, but we just see whatever happens in the offering. And those are the things that I want to talk about, overcoming that, being able to say, okay, well, I do have an honorarium, and being comfortable with that, or having all of your points of business taken care of. And it's why it's necessary to have a ministry information form. Somebody said to me, you had too many, I wanted to invite you, but you had too many questions. And I said, well, if I'm traveling, I need to know, because I've been in the place where I was asked to come and minister. I arrived for ministry. I'm waiting for someone to pick me up from the airport. And of course, this is all, years ago. And I'm sitting at the airport, and I finally call and say, okay, who's picking me up? Oh, well, woman of God, can you just take the shuttle over? Well, the shuttle from the airport to the hotel was like $45.
Wow.
And I'm just going, who's going to pick up that tab? So I arrived, and the host was at the hotel and was expecting me to pick up the tab. And I said, no, this is the host. This individual is going to pick up the tab. So, those kinds of things, just know before you go, the things that I'm going to be sharing and talking about. And if you have that information form, all of the details are there. You need to know who is picking you up from the airport, who's transporting you to and from the service, who's transporting you back to the airport. I would never forget, and I should have learned a lesson from a preacher some years ago, and he's well traveled, and if I called his name, everybody would know his name. And we were sitting in the service and waiting for the service to start, and I could tell they're prolonging the service, and it's because he was the person that was to pick him up that next morning, was a no-show. So he's trying to now get to the airport, but by the time he gets to the airport, he missed his flight, and he missed the flight, so he's trying to drive in, and it was really a big mess. So even in that, when you have, an individual that's supposed to be picking you up, just make sure that there's an understanding that there's backup plan, because one person, and had another situation, one person was to pick you up, and then somebody else was to pick you up, and now you don't know who this individual is that you're getting in the car with. So it's necessary to have that information form that would eliminate, those types of errors and mistakes.
Absolutely. So we're joined with Dr. V. She's an author, she's a former pastor, she's a evangelist. She's done a lot of ministry, many, many years of ministry, and she is going to be one of our guest presenters at the 2018 Spring Training Women in Ministry Workshop on April the 7th. And we're going to be talking about just a lot of stuff that may be common sense, but if you don't know, you just don't know that there are some ministerial graces and protocols that you just don't know. And you know, Dr. V, you know, we're talking about spring is coming. It's a new season. There are new things that God wants to do, and he wants us to be prepared and equipped for when those doors open. The prophetic word that I released for 2018, it comes from Revelation 3:8. Where Jesus says, you know, I've opened up a door for you that no man can close. And, you know, we've been praying. I know I've been praying, God, open up the doors for me to bring the word. And, you know, going through those doors, we want to be prepared. And so I'm just inviting all women. I know Dr. V feels the same way. If you are involved in ministry, whether you preach the word, maybe you're called to minister to the marketplace, however, whatever capacity that you minister in, we want you to come out to this conference on April the 7th in St. Louis, Missouri, and you can register. Registration is available now at www.inspiredoverflow.com. Register. Dr. V, any other insight that you want to share tonight?
I just wanted to add and let women know that, listen, I don't care if you've got to come by plane, bus, train. You really want to be a part of this time of training, because the last nugget is that the type of preparation you make will be the type of door that you will have access to. You're talking about the door that God will shut, will open for you, and no man can shut, no man can close. The level of your preparation will determine the level of your door. Sometimes people say, you know, well, why is it that they didn't do this and they didn't do that? Well, how prepared were you? Did you have that ministry information form? Were you ready to walk through that door? I will never forget, as you were talking about praying, God, open doors for me. There were some things that I was praying that some years ago, and I heard the Lord speak it was so sweetly to me, and it was in that voice of the loving Father. He said, some doors I can't give you access to because you're not ready. Oh my goodness. He said, I can't give you access because you're not ready. He said, and if I allow you to walk through that door, it will absolutely overtake you. It will kill you. You're not prepared for that door. And that's why it's so important when you pray to wait and listen to, you know, because you're praying to God, open the doors for me, and you'll understand why he's not opening those doors, because you're not prepared. So you have to get equipped. The book 21 Wisdom Pearls, I tell people all the time, it's not going to make you speak in tongues, it's not going to make you slay you in the spirit, but it's going to equip you for that level of ministry. It's going to equip you. It's the natural that goes along with the spirit. So I am encouraging women, whatever you can do to get to this time of training, prepare and get yourself equipped. InspiredOverflow.com. Go and register today. I mean, this level of training of just a registration fee of just $49. I've seen conferences where they're charging hundreds of dollars for this type of training. There's a buffet that's going to be available to you. There's ministry materials that's going to be available to you, and I am excited. I'm excited that you're hosting this in the Midwest, and I mean, women from Wisconsin, from Illinois, Indiana, even I think Memphis is probably just 4 hours away. So ladies, come on, get to this time of training. You don't want to miss this time of impartation in your life.
Absolutely. So we're encouraging you to register for the 2018 Spring Training Women and Ministry Workshop that's taking place in St. Louis on Saturday, April the 7th. All of the information will be inside of the Hilton Garden Inn Hotel, and you can register online by visiting www.inspiredoverflow.com. Dr. V is going to be there in attendance. Pastor Pamela Dillon. She's an author. She's an entrepreneur. She's a pastor. She's a prophet. She's the founder of Agape Time Ministries. She's going to be speaking. Evangelist Rachel Hankerson. She's a mom. She's a business owner. She's a co-pastor. She's an evangelist. She's going to be present. The Lord has highlighted these three women, I'm believing that it's a total of over 70 years of ministry experience. And I know some of you are saying, well, you know what? I've been in ministry for many, many years. I already know this stuff. I'm telling you, don't allow pride to stop you from receiving something new. These are all apostolic, prophetic women that are going to be at this workshop. And I'm telling you, do me a favor, ask God if you're supposed to be there. Just ask God. Just ask God. Say, God, am I supposed to be there? And let him talk and minister to you. Dr. V, before we leave, can you let us know what's one common mistake that you see women in ministry make?
Oh my goodness. One common mistake. I have just so many are running through my mind. Blessings. Oh, I see so many of my friends on. Blessings to you, ladies. Blessings. Good evening to you. I think that one common mistake that we make is assuming that the other party knows. And many times they just may not know. Assuming that, I think I may talk about that in the book, and because you talk about how we just don't know what we don't know, and I think it is assuming that the other party knows, assuming that those who are inviting you, that they know, that they operate at the same level of excellence that you do, that they just they automatically know how to host a minister, how to, prepare flight arrangements, hotel. Inspired Overflow Ministries invite me that they know how to handle all of the business. And I guess that's the point that I'm making, that we assume that they know how to handle the business. They know how to host you as relates to the spirit realm, but they do not know how to host you as relates to business. And many times we just assume that if we receive an invitation that they automatically know, and they do not automatically know. I learned that lesson some years ago. And someone challenged me on it, because I was at a women's service, and I'm sitting there because I was taught, I was mentored by my late spiritual mom. She always taught me, be on time. I don't care, what the ministry is doing, be on time. So I'm sitting there, and 40 minutes goes by, and I finally said to the host, I said, I think we need to get started. I mean, it's like 10 people in here, so let's get started. What are we waiting on? And even when I got up, I just started sharing different things. And it actually altered my message, start sharing and teaching different things of what you do and some do's and don'ts. And, someone said, well, I can't believe you did that. And guess what? The first lady came back and said, thank you. I needed to know that. So we cannot just assume that that our host, the person who's inviting us, that they absolutely know how to flow in excellence. And so we need to make sure, that's why it's necessary to have that form. And I think I started saying earlier, and I didn't start sharing it, that someone said to me, you had so many questions. And well, it's not a matter of so many questions, but it's preparedness. I just want to be informed. I need to know, because these things matter, that if it matters. If I've got to find my way to the hotel, I have to, and at that time I was traveling alone. I didn't have an armor bearer. So I'm like, I'm a young lady. I'm in a strange city by myself, never been here before. And I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel safe getting into that shuttle alone. And I say shuttle, it was not even the hotel shuttle, because it was like 50 minutes away, and it was just a taxi from the airport that would shuttle you over to the hotel. So these are things that you need to be comfortable with, that they may not know. You have to be comfortable with asking questions.
Absolutely. And so, one of the things that I found out, that you can be comfortable asking questions when you know that you are in the right. And a lot of times when you just don't know what you don't know, you might be timid, and so you start assuming things. And so that's why we are inviting you to this workshop, 2018 spring training. Get trained, get equipped, get prepared for the doors that God wants to open for you. There are doors that he wants to open. He wants to expand your borders in ministry. There are people that need to be saved. There are people that want to hear what God has placed on the inside of you. And now it's time to be prepared. So Dr. V, Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation on tonight. And to each and every one of you, I invite you and I encourage you to not only register for the Spring Training Women in Ministry Workshop on April the 7th at inspiredoverflow.com, but purchase Dr. V's book. You can find it on Amazon, 21 Wisdom Pearls, a guide for women in ministry. Purchase that book, and I'm telling you, it's going to bless you. Easy to read, very, very, very good information. Well, Dr. V, I'm going to sign off, but I'm going to see you on April the 7th.
Absolutely. Let me encourage, before you sign off, Kacie, let me encourage the women who, I see a lot of my Chicago friends, if you're able to come, I encourage you to come. And if you're not, even my friends, I see some others across the country, if you're able to invite family that you have in the St. Louis, Missouri area or anywhere in Missouri, invite them. Invite your sisters, your cousins, your friends. Invite them to come. Even if you're not able to attend. Many of you, I see you in here. You've been, you know, in services with me before, so you know my ministry. You've seen me here on Facebook. Invite them to come. Not only me, but Pastor Pam and Evangelist Rachel are going to be sharing and ministering. So if you're not able to attend, just click and invite. There's an event link on my timeline that you can go and click and share with others. Help us to let women in the St. Louis area know that this is a very pivotal turning point in their time of ministry. One last thing, I was thinking as you were saying that if you're in ministry or if you're not in ministry, even if you're not, you know, because we've been talking about what to do when you're invited. So even if you're not a speaker in ministry, but you have a ministry, as Pastor Kacie was sharing, there's going to be a lot of vital information that will be shared, a lot of keys and tools that you'll be equipped with that you can use in your day-to-day ministry or even in the marketplace.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
get online and invite them to come and to be poured into. The book is not only on Amazon, but it's on my website as well, drvglobal.info. So go to the website and drvglobal.info and order with me as well there.
All right, awesome.
Thanks
awesome.
so much, Kacie. I have enjoyed
wonderful.
this time tonight.
Thank you. Absolutely, this was fun. So you guys, thanks so much for tuning in. I'm going to go ahead and sign off. But later this week, we're going to be joined by Pastor Pamela Dillon and also Evangelist Rachel Hankerson, who are also noted speakers that will be part of this Spring Training Women in Ministry Workshop on April the 7th. I hope to see you. Invite your other sister friends. Invite other women in ministry that you know. Maybe you're grooming some other women in ministry. They're just getting started. Invite them to come be part and to soak up this information. I'm telling you, it's going to be anointed, it's appointed, and it is really ordained by the Lord. So you guys have a great night. I'll be back later throughout